Hey guys, so I wanted to do a long-term review on my Plaza Cutlery Praetorian Genesis Copper. I've been using this knife quite a bit. It's gone to work with me. It's in my pocket. It's actually one of my favorite beach carries, believe it or not. So this knife has seen quite a bit of carrying, quite a bit of usage. It's been in the ocean, it's been in the sand, and it's been to the office, and it's holding up exceptionally well. It definitely warrants a long-term review. Very quickly, it's a Plaza Cutlery exclusive. It has a copper scale on it, but obviously it's very, very similar to a standard Praetorian Genesis, with one exception, and that being the thickness of the show scale. As you can see, the copper scale is Praetorian tie thickness. Now, the spring side's still standard thickness, but this copper scale adds quite a bit of weight to the knife. Not terribly noticeable holding it and feeling it, but certainly weight-wise, I think this knife is probably around 8 ounces, and this knife is probably around 11 ounces. So it's substantial. Not only probably copper is heavier than titanium, but just the thickness of this knife is substantial. And just so you guys have a size comparison, this is my Praetorian tie. Now, this is not the one I carry, but I do carry a tie, which is the same footprint as a standard Praetorian. So if you're looking at a Genesis versus a full size, there's your size comparison. And this is one that I carry to work just about every day. That is a micro Praetorian, so now you can see the 3 size differences of the Praetorian line. Okay, just getting into the review. First of all, I like how the knife develops a patina, and I can choose whether I want to carry the knife with the patina, or I bought a jewelry cloth, and they'll give one to you at any jewelry store that you buy jewelry at, and it's just like a penny. You wipe this thing down, it just gets super bright, and it's amazing looking at its copper. Obviously, for this review, I did not wipe this down. This has got some nice even patina developing. So I noticed originally, and why I got the jewelry cloth, was some extra patina was developing around the pivot, and that's probably because that's where my thumb is. And actually you can see it right here, that this is where the majority of your patina was developing. Right now it's developing very evenly, so I'm just going to let it roll, probably because it just came back from the beach last weekend and kind of got a little salt water on it, and then I washed it down, but just kind of doing some maintenance on it really gave it a nice even patina. This particular model here has the lanyard hole. I did alter this by PVD, darkening the clip. The reason why I did that is just because I carry it to work. I live in California, and I do carry it around, and I wear dark shorts, and I just kind of want to, be a little bit more low-key. Don't want to have a stainless steel pocket clip standing out. I do know at other parts of the country sometimes it's easy to carry knives around, but unfortunately in our state here, that people will look at you if they spot that pocket clip. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just you have to be sensitive in the workplace and things like that. So I did put a PVD coat on it, and it seems to blend in really well with my dark pants right now. All right, so I do use this knife quite a bit. In my slacks, this jimping up here is pretty aggressive. It will catch at times, so you just have to be cognizant of that. And if you're wearing very expensive pants that are not rough like jeans, that could be an issue for you. Personally, I don't care. I go to work, I throw them on my pants, and if they catch, they catch. It hasn't ripped anything. I wear, like I said, I wear slacks to work, and every now and then when you're pulling it out, it'll probably catch it sometimes there, but it hasn't ripped anything. So it's just more of a minor annoyance than anything. Of course, it has your standard fuller. This is a drop point versus a tanto. And, I've used a Praetorian tie with a D2 and that micro Praetorian you saw with the D2. I like sharpening knives, so it's not a big deal, but if I were to recommend a blade steel for those of you who do not own a sharpener, I would recommend 3V. There's a noticeable difference, at least for me, of using this knife and just not having it dull. Now, I'm not one of those guys that really does hard usage, so I'm cutting envelopes and I'm cutting, boxes open and things like that, but this knife has the factory edge still on it, and I would say after about, 6 months to a year's usage, opening boxes and packages, whereas I've had to sharpen my Praetorian tie in actually strop it as well, and it's probably got equal usage on D2 steel. This one I would be willing to hand to anybody and say it has the factory edge just as sharp as it came out of the factory. So that 3V steel I think is really neat. So if I had a choice in the future ordering a user Medford, I would go with the 3V, and I think it's a little bit of a shame that they're not offering the Tonto and 3V anymore. But that's just my take on it. I actually also have S35VN steel that I've used for Medford, and I'm not like a steel snob or anything. I'm just saying what I notice with this particular knife, because it's the only 3V knife that I use, is that edge is exactly the same under usage after 6 months, whereas some of the D2 steel I touch up and sharpen up myself, just because it does dull out a little bit. It hasn't loosened up completely now. The tie that I have will almost drop free. This one, you see, I had to give it a pretty solid shake, and so it's breaking in, but it hasn't broken in completely solidly. I can thumb flick it. I can one hand operate this knife now, and you can see right in that angle. Look at that patina, just beautiful. I can thumb flick it for the most part with pretty good consistency. And like I said, it's still fairly stiff. I mean, it's smooth, but you still need a good amount of resistance to close the knife after you break the detent there. Okay, so the positives of this knife are, after 6 months of usage, it is, and I've dropped the knife, I've used it, I've put it in the sand. If I clean this knife up and polished it, and I'm talking with the polishing cloth, and put it back in its box, it would pass for new. This thing's a tank. No chips, no dings, no dents. It's just, the way the knife is built, the way it's finished, the way it's designed, it just doesn't take any wear and tear. The weight can be an issue for some people, not with me. When I carry a pocket knife, I want to know I'm carrying a pocket knife, so I like the weight, but the 11, it's over 10 ounces, so that it's a heavy knife. I haven't had any issues. Kind of like the tie, I have a Tonto, so sometimes I have issues kind of getting it into a little box because of the thickness of the knife. I don't know, just the nature of the hollow grind here and the aggressive point it comes to. This knife has functioned for me just like any other Sebenza that I have. The only issue is when I cut apples with it, it'll crack the apple in half just because of the stock thickness. But as far as paper, envelopes, boxes, it's a slicer. Goes through that just like any other knife that's out there. And like I said, it commands a very sharp edge still, so you're not going to have any problem with anything that you're going to need to cut, with the exception of an apple, which will noticeably split halfway down the apple. Okay, so the last thing I'll say about this knife is it was expensive. I think your standard Praetorian Genesis with the G10 is right around the $600 mark. This is sold at Plaza Cutlery for the $900 mark, so it's pretty expensive, especially for someone who's not buying these to collect them. I would actually not recommend anybody buying a Medford to collect. If you do collect it, just understand that you collect it for enjoyment. I do have a lot of Medfords that I don't use, but for the most part, every Medford model that I use, I have a model that I will put in my pocket and do enjoy. It's kind of one of those addictive things because they make so many models and they make so many combinations that your instinct is to buy them and put them in the safe. But these knives definitely are made to be used, and Dan at Plaza Cutlery is a big proponent of don't ever collect knives because you don't know what's going to be popular in 10 years, and I do appreciate his advice to me. But at $950 or $900 or whatever the hell he's selling these knives for, it makes a strong argument not to beat on him. But you can see this knife, guys. This has been in my pocket for a good 6 months, I think it is, and I've been working it pretty hard, and it's been an amazing knife. So my final user review of the Medford Genesis Copper is it's a winner. And if you guys can pick one up or at least have the opportunity to use one, I'd highly recommend one. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.